to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one! Another one!
Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. It is Wednesday of Thanksgiving week. This is kind of a holiday day, isn't it? The last day of the day before Thanksgiving. This is the big night. Welcome aboard. Plenty to get to today. Plenty guests. Rick Bozich going to be with us. DJ, he'll join us a little bit later. Derrick Jackson. He's bringing along Richard Fain today. We'll hear from Mike Woodson as Indiana puts another one in the win column last night very easily as they made easy work. Last night it was not a high-scoring game for Indiana, of course, but it was one they didn't need to score much in because they are not allowing opposing teams to do much, if anything, these days. They almost held another opponent to under 20% shooting last night, but Jackson State knocked a few down at the end. And so they were able to get out of that. And I think they finished at about 20% shooting. But, man, the defense is looking pretty stout. We'll talk about that a lot more. Hope your day's going well. It's Thanksgiving time. Everyone getting ready to travel. Getting lots of basketball last night. All the tournaments going on. The big matchup between UCLA and Gonzaga turned out to not be as what we were all hoping for, as Gonzaga ended up routing UCLA. Oh, what was that final score? I'm looking at too many scores here to find that, but there it is, 83-63. And they were up by 20 for a while in that ball game. So it's not like that happened at the very end. I didn't watch the game. I was busy working, but it's early, so I don't put a lot of stock in early season games. But usually games of that nature are a little more entertaining. But Gonzaga's got some new players, freshmen. So maybe they've got the pieces they didn't have before. We'll see. They still have Drew Timme. The Zags, man, they don't play a tough enough schedule, but of course, people will always point to this game now when you start talking about that later in the season. How's it going, everybody? I have a lot of people jumping on. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. If you're traveling, be safe. Safe travels. Happy Thanksgiving, Glenn. And to everyone, like we said. Saw the Music Man last night. Came up and introduced himself. Saw a few people at the game. A lot of people getting to go to games right now that normally don't get to go because of the students being out of town. Ed thought that Gonzaga was pretty impressive last night. Oh, yeah, and the return of Dickie V. The return of Dickie V brought tears to his eyes. He was pretty emotional about coming back in to do it, and Good for him. He was doing that game. Robert the Truth Carter just simply says 5-0, as that's the record of the Indiana Hoosiers now. As they have another game on Saturday, as they should be 6-0, heading to the Carrier Dome that following Tuesday. So that'll be. Wisconsin did not defeat Houston. They absolutely destroyed Houston yesterday. Talk about some scores from yesterday. That was a little bit of a surprise, but they absolutely were all over Kelvin Sampson's Houston team. I think they beat them by like 20. Go to the Big Ten scores. I'll find out for certain, but
they actually only won by 2 that I see, 65-63.
You're right. Yeah. Holy crap. They were up by 20 when I checked that score. I was going out the door. Wow, what a run Houston made in the second half. Well, the first half, Wisconsin outscored Houston 40-20. And the second half, it was Houston 43-25. Man, you talk about a game of dominating runs.
Our old buddy Tom Crean went down to Northwestern yesterday, it looks like. Lost by quite a bit.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that was on the TV for a minute before I didn't get to see the result. I left, but
he's 2-4 and he's on the hot seat.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, he's done. This is it. This is the last season for Tom Crean in Georgia. There's no doubt to me. He's done absolutely nothing there.
And the worst part about this team that he has right now is he lost his best guy, Severe Wheeler, to Kentucky in the transfer portal last season.
And you know what? He's in a place where the Atlanta area is just stocked with talent.
As a matter of fact, what Mike Woodson's been focusing on right now.
Getting ready to say, look at the Indiana roster. I think you'll find, I know there's 2, there might be 3 guys from the Houston general area right now.
Or Atlanta, you mean?
Atlanta, dang it. Atlanta general area. And Crean just can't get that. He can't. But you know what? It sounds familiar. It's why he basically lost his job in Indiana. He could no longer recruit the state of Indiana.
Yeah, I'd say the last major Indiana guy that really contributed for Crean was Yogi Ferrell.
If you cannot recruit the major recruiting pockets of the teams that you coach for, you're done. He could not recruit Indiana, and he cannot recruit Atlanta for Georgia.
Yeah, maybe we'll see Tom Crean back in the ESPN booth next season.
Illinois back on the winning side of things last night. They knocked off Kansas State 72-64 in the Hall of Fame Classic. Wisconsin, that's the Maui Invitational that they're in, that they beat Houston in, by the way. So wonder who they play today. We'll have to look that up. Nebraska with a win over Tennessee State at home, 79-73. And, of course, Indiana doubles up Jackson State 70-35. But the defensive efforts, what do you want to talk about in the Indiana game? While it was 70-35, Jackson State ended the game on a 9-0 run because, the third team, I guess, was in. So it could have been 70-26. That would have just been 20 to allow 20. That would have been crazy. And it almost was to allow 20-something points in a Division I game. I don't care who you are. That's defense. And you can see it. Nope. Clappy will not survive. Ed says Wisconsin plays St. Mary's tonight. Man.
Unbeaten 6-0 St. Mary's. Same conference with Gonzaga.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how that turns out.
They must have beaten somebody. Has gone on to beat so far in this Maui.
They must. I was going to say they must have.
They beat Notre Dame by 3, and they beat Oregon by 12.
Well, putting that Oregon win is a nice one. Cincinnati escapes a 15-point deficit as Illinois goes down again. Or was this from the other day?
Who are you looking at?
Cincinnati and Illinois.
Oh, yeah, that was during that. That's the same tournament they're in right now. They lost to them before they played Kansas State.
I was going to say, I don't know why that popped up. Yeah, I thought that was from the other day. But a lot of all kinds of sports coming up on top of that for it's Thanksgiving. So, we got all kinds of football tomorrow.
Michigan State and the Bad Boy Mowers battle for Atlantis starting today.
Oh, I love all those tournaments.
Ohio State playing in the Fort Myers tip-off. They play against Florida. Michigan State's playing against Loyola Chicago. That's, what is her name? The super fan, the old woman for Loyola Chicago.
Oh, Sister Jean.
Sister Jean, yeah. I'm sure she'll be down there in Atlantis.
I guess. Yeah. Sister Jean. Man, she probably has the most T-shirt sales of anybody at Loyola.
She would have a good NIL deal if she were.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Knocking them down. But last night we also talked to Charlie Miller and Steve Risley after the game. But before that, we got to talk to Woody and a couple players. Let's hear what he had to say as far as, I can't even read my own writing, John. Wrote the first one down. I asked him about, if you looked at the minutes, the game before last, the subs, for lack of a better word, second wave, third wave, whatever, actually played more minutes than the starters. Christian Lander played the second most minutes, I think, in the game before last. And it was substantial how much minutes the guys off the bench played. Other than Miller Kopp, they played more than the starters. This game, however, was different. And I noticed with, probably 8 minutes to go even before he really put them in, the bulk of the minutes had gone to the starters in that game. And it stayed that way. I mean, if you look at the end statistics, I don't think that there's not a starter that played less than anyone off the bench, with the exception of Bates and Patrick Stewart, which other than that, Johnson, Kopp, Jackson Davis, and Thompson played more minutes than anyone, which is how it should be and would normally be, but it hadn't been that way. But I asked Woody if this was because some of these games, they're letting these leads get away, or he wanted these starters to be more locked in. And that wasn't quite the answer, but let's hear what he had to say.
No, not really. I mean, again, guys, we got a team that if you called upon to play, you got to be ready to play and you got to produce. And we getting that from everybody that steps on the floor. And it didn't have anything to do, I went with the starters, because they were playing pretty good. I thought they played some really positive minutes. And then I went back to the second unit, and they came in and kept things going. So that's the kind of team we're going to have to be in the long run, especially when we start making this run, towards the Big Ten. I mean, we gotta be deep, and guys got to be ready to play when called upon.
And he actually went on to say in another portion of that, though, that in the beginning earlier, that they didn't get the job. The second wave didn't get the job done like he liked it, so he went back to the starters. Is what he said. I think DJ is joining us now. Derrick Jackson, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Jim. Good morning, brother. How you doing, man?
Good. You look kind of cold, man.
Yeah, man. I'm up here in Indianapolis. I still hadn't gone home. The plan was always for me to come up and went to the game this weekend. Obviously, didn't like the outcome like it has been for the past few weeks, but nevertheless, I'm up here in Indy. I'm enjoying family and friends, and I'm waiting Turkey Day just like everyone else.
Heck yeah, man. It is. It's right around the corner, so looking forward to that. Are you going to be able to go to the Purdue game?
I don't even. You can't mention Purdue. You have to say those guys in West Lafayette.
The other game. That game.
No,
that game.
Yeah, game. No. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go to the game. I got to get back down to Southwest Florida. But obviously, I'll be making frequent trips up here. Got to get into watching these this basketball team. These guys and these ladies are phenomenal. I think we are going. You were just talking to Mike. I was listening to his interview. And yes, you have to be able to produce when you're coming off of the bench. And, and those guys do that. And if they don't do well, you got to go back to the starter. So, I mean, for me, he has an excellent philosophy, and I think they're going to do really well this year with the men's basketball.
Yep, we got plenty more. Derrick Jackson has joined us. We'll talk to Richard Fain later on as well, and Rick Bozich also. Hey, we're back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration. Oh, we were late getting on, Derrick.
That's all right. That's all right, man.
It was my fault.
That's okay. I'm looking. Because I know the time changed. I thought it was 8 to 10, but it's 8:30 to 10:30. So yeah, that's all right, man. I wasn't scheduled to get on here until 9:10. Richard will be joining us here shortly in the next 15-20 minutes, and it's going to be some good conversation now, Richard. So I know if you kind of read up some of the stuff on Richard and his background, excellent resume athletically, and now in the financial industry. Good friend of mine. We've been like brothers for over 40 years. I grew up right down in Fort Myers. Him and I and Deion Sanders went to high school together. He's the one who gave Prime Time his name, Prime Time. So he really did. Those guys play football. I didn't. And we'll get into this, John, during the show. But he gave John his name at a basketball tournament they had, and he said, "Hey, Prime Time, boy, you look like Prime Time," and it just went from there, and here we are. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Excuse me, man, my voice for a sec. Is our other? I don't want to say his name because we might kind of keep it as a teaser, as a special guest. But is the next guy we talked about over the phone 2 weeks from now or next week?
It's gonna be about 2 weeks from now. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So not next week. Okay.
No. Not next week.
Yeah. Was Richard in Fort Myers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Housing Authority. He worked with the Housing Authority and all that.
Well, I think he was on the board of directors. For them, he's never worked with them. Richard has always been a banker. After his NFL career, he's always been started off at Nations Bank. Him and I worked together. It was Nations Bank. Now it's Bank of America. Then he went to SunTrust, and then he branched off and went to another smaller community bank. He was the vice president of that bank for a number of years. Been in the management and the business banking side of the house. So his career spans maybe 25 years in the financial world via banking, and now he's a YouTuber that does financial consulting. I mean, he puts out enormous amount of videos, and he'll tell you about it. He does private financial consulting too. But he did very well for himself. When Deion was playing football, we would, go visit. When he was an analyst up in New York, Richard and I would go every year to New York and go to one of his shows with Jim Nance, Deion Sanders, and
10 seconds.
the rest of those guys. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go.
We're not on the station where you live. We should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Turkey Day, kind of. Pre-Turkey Day Eve. Turkey Day Eve.
Right.
This long ago became almost a holiday unto itself, Derrick. This Wednesday before Thanksgiving, because you get past noon on this Wednesday and it's like, forget about it.
Yeah, work's done, man. It's
not much is going to get accomplished when you get past noon.
You can cancel that. And I tell you too, some of the food that's being prepared, even as we speak for tomorrow, it might not last till tomorrow because everyone's
taste
always
testing. Taste testing, man. Taste
testing day. That's what it is, bro. Taste testing day.
You gotta make sure that stuff's good. You gotta make sure it's just right.
Yeah, you got to, man.
Make sure it's just right. What your favorite part of Thanksgiving?
Being able to be around family and friends and just thanking my Lord and Savior for his blessings that he has bestowed upon myself and my family to be able to, speak to them. And Jim, as you know, I told you before, unfortunately, I lost my wife back in August. So it'll be a little tough for me this time of year. Obviously, she was here last year, so it's a little tough. But hey, man, a deep faith in the Lord Jesus Christ is where I'm at, and is what has gotten me here. So,
well, glad that you're going to be in town and around family, and that's what makes that's family and football, right? That's
absolutely
Thanksgiving. Family and football.
Absolutely.
That's all I think about. Thanksgiving is about. It's not supposed to be, but that's what it is. Speaking of football, DK Bonham, CJ Pearson, a couple of names from Indiana that in the portal. Actually, and they join John, whom I'm missing, someone that's already hit the portal.
There's a wide receiver, right? That just
Jacoby Hewitt. Jacoby Hewitt jumped in.
So all three of those names into the portal for Indiana. We'll see if anything else goes. But, of course, that's going to be the case every year. I don't care who you are. If you don't play or whatever, if they think they can find some playing time someplace, or sometimes they end up going closer to home. There's a lot of reasons. And now with the portal, you can do whatever you want. But either way, there's some names leaving, but you hate to see that. But that's the nature of the beast now, Derrick.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate. I mean, again, like I told you a couple of weeks ago, last week, yeah, I'm going to make some enemies. I'm not a big fan of the portal, and the reason being, especially for underclassmen. I mean, once you go to school and you fulfill your commitment, you graduate, it's almost like a marriage. I mean, once you fulfill your commitment, then you can move on to other things. But I just think it's an opportunity for these guys to cry, take their marbles home, say, listen, I don't want to be competitive here. To me, the first thing I'm going to ask the kid is, why are you in the portal? Well, sell me on why you're here. Don't just tell me, well, I wasn't getting enough playing time, because to me, that's a competition issue. You know what I'm saying? I just want to go to another school. Well, why? School you come from is a great institution. So it's the nature of the beast, man. It's the way college football is now with NIL. So it's just something that, gets coaches. Some teams it works out in their favor. I'm sure that, Coach Allen will benefit from the portal this year.
Ed Briggs making a nice little point or question: who's going to start at quarterback on Saturday for Indiana? And I'm telling you, it's going to be. I think it better be Grant Gremmel. He is the only, between him and Donovan, he's shown the ability to throw the ball effectively, and. That's I'm not saying that Donovan's not going to play. I think they're definitely going to play, but I think you start Grant Gremmel. If you're going in there with all serious contention on trying to win that game, Grant Gremmel's got to start, because he can throw the ball. he threw the first touchdown pass to a wide receiver since the Idaho game last week. So, but he's just so calm. And I've been talking about that. And he was asked after the game the other day about pressure, and he says, "Oh, I don't believe in pressure. Pressure's fake," which it is. It's a mentally made up thing. But to actually be able to live like that, because most people can't, but some people are special enough that they do and can. He's got that mindset, and you have nothing else to lose, Derrick, in a game like this. Nothing else has worked, so why not throw the kitchen sink at this baby? Because this relieves a lot of ills if you could somehow find a way to knock off Purdue.
Yeah,
I mean that other team up north.
Yeah, I think that Coach Allen probably has the same mindset. You start Grummel. I'm in that position. I'm going to start Grummel. McCullough's going to play. You've got Hoover coming in. So you've got some competition. You've got some tape on McCullough, and you've got some tape on Grimmer now, because you have to start thinking that Mike Penis Jr. will not return to IU next year. So now you've got to start thinking we've got to get Grimmer in, get his feet wet, like Coach Mallory would say. Let's get the guy some plays under his belt and set ourselves up for a great off-season and conditioning program and a great spring. This is where your mindset, you're thinking about winning. You want to beat Purdue. That's where your mindset is. But the harsh reality of it is this is going to be the last game for IU for this football season, win, lose, or draw. So now we've got to get ready for the future. Now Coach Allen's got to start thinking about this and making personnel changes, and we kind of talked about that as well. As far as coaches is concerned, I mean I see that happening.
Let's see. Freifogel invited to the Shrine Bowl. Good for him especially after the season he's had. But he's a talent, and we all know that. I was thinking this. Jackson State, the team that Indiana beat last night in basketball. That's the same team, right? Where Dion is.
Jackson State, Jackson State, that's where he is. He's coaching football, but I don't know about the basketball team. Right.
No. Obviously, I know he's not involved with the basketball team, but that's who Indiana played last night.
Right.
So maybe they should have brought Dion with them. They could have had a little magic. Because they had no offense, baby. They needed some offense last night. They needed a little prime time in them last night. Yeah,
they did. I mean, but you got to understand too. Now the tables turn. So when we're talking about basketball, it's the nature of the beast when you play Indiana. Man, you're a smaller, lesser known school, and you come in to play Indiana on the hardwood. Mike Woodson's the head coach. You got some talent you're going up against, man. So it's not going to be it's not going to be good for you if you haven't played at that level yet. So.
Yeah, well, since Mike Woodson's arrived, man, the defense for Indiana has just been ratcheted up on the basketball side of things. And, of course, they haven't played anyone of stature yet, St. John's a lone exception. But that's the schedule. But it doesn't matter. They are just shutting teams down. And I'm like, okay, they're still a Division I team, man. And we've seen other teams be upset. Their defense, you have to like where their defense is. The offense is coming along, but as far as defensively, they're looking pretty good. They'll get a test. They have Marshall. We are Marshall this Saturday, but after that, Tuesday, they have to travel to Syracuse to the Carrier Dome, so they'll get a test there. But I think that they're fine defensively. They can't get in any offensive lulls where they're not hitting, and they've been shooting the ball better. I think that's because Miller Kopp is now starting to really look to find his role. Parker Stewart is kind of getting out of just shooting 3-pointers and he was trying to get to the hole last night a few times. So he's getting more and more comfortable. So the offense is becoming more comfortable in its own skin, it seems to be. So I think that this team is just going to continue to improve.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the Syracuse game. I was looking at it last night. And, it just brings back memories of that shot I see Ronnie Cycli, Darryl Thomas, and Callaway in the paint. I see Keith Smart go up. Looked like he jumped out of the dome. It wasn't in the Carry Dome, but looked like he jumped wherever they were playing. I think Madison Square Garden at the time. And that shot was like the shot heard around the world. And I keep thinking, if I'm Coach Mike Woodson, I'm like, guys, this team right here is a team right here that we beat to win the national championship. Put yourselves and imagine yourselves in national championship mode. Obviously, it's a different Syracuse team, but you got to create that mindset. You got to create that image in these players' head, you know. And I'm a firm believer in that. You know what I'm saying? You got to paint a picture, even in the sales world, man. You trying to sell a customer something. You paint a picture of where this customer is going to be. You paint a picture of where this team could be. And that gets the adrenaline flowing, man. That gets you pumped up. That gets that dog in your gym right there when you start doing things like that.
He's getting ready, baby. He's getting ready.
Yes,
Let's see. Illinois knocked off Kansas State last night, 72-64. I think that was the first Kobe return of Kofi Coburn. He had missed the first 3 games of the season for violating NCAA rules, which that was stupid. So Illinois has kind of taken on some knocks because of not having him, but made a difference last night.
He took that, just to clarify, he did play in that game where they lost Cincinnati.
I thought he had played before.
Yep.
So what was the deal? Why did he play in that game?
That might have been his 4th game back. I don't know how many games Illinois played. So
okay, I thought he had played before, but I guess just getting back into the flow of things, not playing those games. You know, getting into not game shape, but game mode. I guess it takes a couple, especially in basketball. Football, you got to get right to it, but basketball, you got to get right to it. And 32 minutes last night. He didn't do too bad. 23 and 13, 23 points, 13 rebounds. So he was ready to come back and play with an abandon. That's one of the teams Indiana will be facing. And he's a beast, man. He's a beast.
Right.
More games on tap for tonight. Oh, I hit the wrong way. Who is playing in the top 25 tonight?
Yeah, who is playing tonight in the top 25?
Auburn and UConn, Houston and Oregon. 2 teams that did not expect to be playing because both of them lost unexpectedly. Let's see. Michigan out of the Big Ten hosting Tarleton State. Xavier and Iowa State. Number 6 Baylor travels to Arizona State. The Buckeyes of Ohio State in the Fort Myers tip-off against number 23 Florida. Number 8 Texas is playing California Baptist. And that's about all of the Memphis Tigers. They're in the NIT season tip-off against Virginia Tech. 2 undefeated teams there. Memphis is 4-0, Virginia Tech 5-0. So there's a good matchup. Yep. Something to keep watching, keep an eye on. So there's that, man. College basketball is here, though. But it's like it's not officially season until you got to get past Thanksgiving.
Right.
Before you go full into college basketball. It's just there's too much football coming up.
Yeah, it's a lot of football coming up. And I just noticed, too, Illinois fell out the top 25 as well, right?
Yeah, but that's because of the Kofi Coburn thing. They'll be back in.
Yeah.
Just like we will. We'll be right back in after a break. You're listening to us from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this pre-Thanksgiving Eve or Thanksgiving Eve. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
The baseball season.
Oh, I'm not going to lie. I'm tired. Hello, Richard Fain.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Hey, my pleasure.
There's Derrick up there.
Hey, what up, DJ?
What's up, brother? What's going on, man? It's cold up in Indianapolis, man.
Hey, man, we got a little bit of cold weather here in Southwest Florida, but nothing like where you guys are.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, cold weather is because it drops below 72 degrees.
That's exactly. I did my little 4-mile walk this morning at about 7:30, and it was 53, and I was all bundled up like it was snowing. So
Oh man, yeah.
When did Richard? When did you play?
I played at the University of Florida from 86 through 90. And then I got drafted in 91 by the Cincinnati Bengals. I played there a year. Well, played there part of the 91 season, finished the 91 season with the Arizona Cardinals, and then had 2 years with the Bears. And then in 94, went to training camp with the Redskins, and that's where it ended for me.
Did Mike, wasn't it Mike Dumas who did you play with Mike Dumas?
I played during the same era as Mike. I think Mike might have been a year behind me, though, I believe, DJ. I think Mike was a year, maybe Mike was a year behind me. We came out at the same time, but
right.
I'm not,
He was
I'm
a year
not
behind. Mm-hmm. His year behind.
And DJ, one of my ex-roommates, Vince Fisher, I saw that, I didn't realize this. He was captain in 86.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Vince, great guy, man. You probably, Jim, get yourself into the mindset of when you're thinking about Richard and some of the other players in his era. John L. Williams, the other one, John L. Williams was the fullback in Florida, and then they called him. What was the running back, Richard, that you guys had in Florida? That was really good.
So when I came into Florida in 86, Neil Anderson was just getting drafted. He was just leaving, going to the Chicago Bears. So Neil Anderson was on his way out in 86. I believe John L. Williams was on his way out. But we still had Lewis Oliver there. We had Jarvis Williams. We still had
15 seconds, guys.
Yeah. So it was still some of the older guys still around when I came in 86 from that really good Florida team a couple years prior.
And the man himself, Smith.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you here on this Thanksgiving Eve. And don't forget about our good friend, Cheryl Sizemore. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, Remax dealer, reach out to Cheryl. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference in you getting the home that you want. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Hey, we're joined now by Richard Fain, a good friend of DJ's and former player at the University of Florida and the NFL. And you may know him from the commercial banking world if you're so lucky to know. But Richard, welcome in, brother. We appreciate you.
Well, glad to be here, and you guys doing some good stuff. I've been checking you guys out, so keep doing what you're doing.
We're having fun, man. We appreciate it. Your collegiate playing career at Florida, Florida is one of the schools now that we talk about that it's hard to understand how Florida and Florida State and Miami are not what they were back when you were playing in the 80s, what Howard Snellenberger got going down in Miami, what Spurrier had at Florida, what Bowden had at Florida State. And because all the players are still coming from Florida, it's like, how are they not? I don't understand how those schools are not, at least one of them, dominant like they used to be. It's crazy.
Yeah, when I came to Florida, it was Florida, Florida State, and Miami were, if you were a kid that grew up in the state of Florida, played football in the state of Florida, that's where you wanted to go. I think what you've seen happening now is these kids understand with the power of social media and everything at their disposal, they don't have to just limit themselves to the state of Florida anymore. They can go to any Power 5 school in the country by just pressing a button on their phone and sending a message to a coach or some film to a coach or whatever. And these kids just got more exposure now. And what's happened, in the last 20 years, you had Bobby Bowden at Florida State. You had Jimmy Johnson at Miami. You had Steve. These were huge name coaches similar to a Nick Saban now. So kids wanted to go there. When those guys went into a kid's living room and spoke with their parents, they carried a big stick. I think what's happening now with these 3 schools in Florida is that they're just losing the recruiting battle in their own state.
Yeah, you just mentioned 3 of the greatest coaches of all time, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Bobby Bowden, Howard Snellenberger, and Steve Spurrier. And I was fortunate to cover Howard Snellenberger at Louisville, so that I had a great experience doing it. But Steve Spurrier is still I wish I could have covered him just because he always cracked me up because he didn't care what he said.
Right.
And he was always pretty damn funny. I mean, his digs were great. I mean, I was like, where does he come up with some of that stuff, man? He loved to dig in Florida State, especially.
Yeah, back then, you had a real rivalry, and Steve came in my senior year, which was 1990. So that 1990 team we had that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, that's what that kicked off the golden era for the University of Florida. I mean, that year, although we were on probation, we won the SEC outright with a 7-1 record, but again on probation, so we couldn't go to the Sugar Bowl. But I think that team, and I think when people hear Steve talk about his time at the University of Florida as head coach, I mean, he often mentions that 1990 team as the jump off point for his career and all the great things that his teams did at the University of Florida.
Yeah, and he showed that he's a great coach, but he went on to other places and still had success wherever he went. He's just a great ball coach. And for those that don't realize, he was a Heisman Trophy winner at Florida.
Yeah.
Not many guys won the Heisman Trophy, and then or I don't guess anyone has gone on to win a national championship as a coach and the Heisman Trophy. I don't think.
Pretty unique.
He's certainly a special dude. But as are you, obviously. Your career after you leave Florida, you play some in the NFL and get the experience there.
Correct. Yeah. So left the University of Florida, was fortunate enough, like I said, get drafted by Cincinnati, and that transition from and DJ, you know what I'm talking about. That transition from that camaraderie of rah, everybody got your back, this whole college atmosphere, then all of a sudden you get to the NFL. Which is a business, right? But as a 22-year-old kid, you don't know that. You just think, okay, I'm gonna go in the locker room, and you see all these guys that you've been seeing on TV. So I walk into the locker room in training camp at the Cincinnati Bengals in '91, and here I go. I'm next to Boomer Esiason, James Fulcher. David Fulcher. And James Brooks and Ickey Woods and downtown Eddie Brown from the University of Miami. I mean,
yes, sir.
All of these guys I'm used to seeing playing. Now all of a sudden you're in there next to them, and I think sometimes for these young kids, at least back in my era, you were sort of awestruck, right? You were like, whoa, but quickly you understand it's a business, and you got to get down to business and try to make that team.
Yeah, that I can imagine. Now you have to look at those guys and see that, and then you have to go out and compete.
Exactly.
With some of these guys. And how intimidating is that, especially when it's your spot and you're like, damn, I've been watching this guy on TV, and now I got to try to beat him out of a job.
True. It's real interesting because in college, maybe, at least back in my era, maybe I faced, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 stud receivers a year, right? Out of 11 games. Thing is, in the NFL, man, all of those guys are studs. I mean, you're talking about your number 1 receiver all the way to your 4th receiver. And as a rookie, you're coming in like these veterans, they just, you have to really get your mind right. Physically, you can do it. The key is can you make the transition mentally to that level and start competing right away. And of course, if these teams don't have a lot of money invested in you, if you're a late round pick or a free agent, obviously you got to work twice as hard. And that's the mentality I knew coming in. I was a late round pick or a middle round pick. Back then they had 12 rounds. So I was a mid round pick, mid to late. And I knew coming in with they already had 2 starting corners there. They had a 3rd nickel corner. So I was really fighting for a fourth corner spot in special teams.
The biggest thing is got to get that pension, man. Get that pension.
There you go. That's what I had to do. I said, a lot of people ask me, well, man, you didn't play 15 years. I mean, are you upset? I was like, look, man, God was good to me. I got them 3 years in. Now I get this pension when I get, a certain age, the medical and all the other stuff that go along with it. So for me, I was fortunate. Yes, I would have loved to play 15 years, but I was fortunate for the 3 years I did play.
And you're very, I was not going to say fortunate, but smart, because you were prepared for that to end. Obviously, went on into the banking world, and that's not something to just jump off into, and not a career that you just wander into. So how did you end up going in that direction?
Well, just like DJ, we were raised by mothers who put education first. And one of the things my mom told me when she drove me to the bus station, I took a Greyhound bus with one duffel bag to the University of Florida at 18 years old. Before I got on that bus, she looked at me and said, look, son, if you don't come back here with that degree, don't come back. Right. She didn't say anything about the NFL. She didn't say anything about all this other stuff I did on the field. She said, look, if you come back here, you better have that degree with you. So I knew I could not disappoint my mom. So when I was at Florida, I took the school part of it. I took it seriously, and I knew that I wasn't the most gifted athlete from an athletic ability. I knew I was a good player, and if I got the shot to play in the league, it would be great. But I knew I needed to get that degree so that if I did not get a shot in the NFL, I could get myself in a position where I had some options in life and I could create a better life for myself through education.
Derrick, how did you guys meet and become friends?
It was Richard was originally in Northern Florida. He came down, and I was at Norfolk Myers High School. Like I told you, Deion Sanders was at Norfolk Myers High School. So Richard comes down, and he goes to Norfolk Myers High School too. So we became fast friends from there. I mean, me and the guy, basically we lived together, and in my mother's home at times, and in his mother's home. Play football, myself, him, and like I told you, that's how we came to meet. And it was the three amigos, and Coach Ron Hoover, which was our head coach, would tell you, the passion. Listen, back then, I mean, football was just completely different. Okay, I mean, just like Richard said, you go to University of Florida, there was no scholarship limitation. So, and Richard may be undercutting himself a little bit, but Richard was you don't go to University of Florida with scholarship limitations that they had. I think they were limited to like 10 scholarships. He was one of the recipients. So, and then coming from, playing with, Prime Time himself, like I told you, Richard gave Deion Sanders his nickname, Prime Time. I mean, that exposure that Deion brought to the area, man, I mean, we just took off. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, I was recruited very lightly by Florida, recruited very lightly by Miami. I didn't get offered a scholarship by Florida. I went on a visit. Miami, I was recruited by Miami. Hey, I wasn't mad, man. I went somewhere where I was going to play because, listen, at Miami, I was not prepared to sit down for 4 years, brother. These guys were good. You guys were good, man.
Richard, how did the Primetime name come about?
Well, like DJ said, Prime, DJ, and myself, we all went to high school together. Derrick actually has known Deion longer than I have because they played Pop Warner football together. I played against those guys in Pop Warner, but they actually played for the same organization. So, Deion, like Derrick said, Deion was a year ahead of us, but he was always the best athlete on the court, on the baseball diamond, on the football field. He was always the guy, even when we were little 8-year-olds, right? So, we were in high school, and he was playing varsity basketball. I was like a second string guy on the varsity basketball team, kind of tagging along. And we would play on Tuesdays and Fridays, and every Tuesday and Friday, Deion would, put 20 plus points up, 2 or 3 dunks. So, one day we were going to one Tuesday night game, and it was a 7:30 game, and we were all on the bus kind of fooling around. And I just came up with the name. I said, Deion, you getting ready to show out in prime time, because prime time is 8 o'clock, right? You getting ready to show out in prime time. I said, so you prime time. I'm gonna start calling you prime time, and that's how the name stuck with him, man. And he's had it ever since.
He certainly has used it to good effect, and it is the most appropriate moniker. He's carried it, and he's not carried it overboard either, which is good. But he's entertaining to watch. He's fun. Now he's doing the Aflac commercials with Nick Saban.
I know. Crazy.
What a combination that is.
I know.
Yeah.
Nick Saban and prime time, but I think prime time Deion is. Well, he played for I'm a Reds fan.
Okay,
so he played for the Reds, and he actually, I'm from southern Indiana. I grew up right closer to Louisville, and he actually played some at their AAA team in Louisville. I remember when they were, I think probably on a rehab assignment or something.
Yeah.
He was down there, but that was big time for prime time to be around there. But watching him in baseball, and if people don't understand how difficult that is, there's only a handful of athletes in the history of pro sports that have been able to do that. And I'm talking about going back to Jim Thorpe.
I know.
Jim Thorpe was one of those. Bo Jackson was one of those.
Correct.
Deion was one of those. Michael Jordan was not one of those.
No.
Baseball I know he's one of the greatest athletes, but you watching him play baseball and you could see it just wasn't quite natural it wasn't as fluid as it needed to be.
Correct.
Where Deion or Bo is like, it didn't matter. It's like, it just doesn't matter. And, but what a rare air that is to be in. And because it's crazy the intricacies of specialties that it takes to be a pro athlete in whatever sport that is. You've got to be so good in so many different small ways within that sport, and to be able to do that within multiple sports, it's crazy.
I agree with you 100%. He's certainly in a class of its own when it comes to true two-sport guys that played it at the highest level and that were actually good. I mean, I think for me, if I got to rank the guys, I got to go with and again, I wasn't in Jim Thorpe's era. I know he was, but in my era, if I had to look at it, I think Bo and Deion, when you look at what they actually did, think about if Bo would have never gotten hurt in the NFL. Could you imagine what Bo could have been the first guy probably to be a Hall of Famer in baseball and a Hall of Famer in football. Now, could you imagine that from an athlete? Like, that's the kind of athlete Bo was, and I think D was right there. I mean, I think Bo was a more natural hitter than D, but I think D was a more natural defensive guy and a base stealer than Bo was, but Bo was just more power, and then obviously Bo was a running back and D, but those two guys, when I think about two sport athletes, that's what comes to mind.
Absolutely, man. I look forward to having you back on, Richard. There's probably so much more that we could cover and go over, but it has been an absolute joy to get to know you and meet you and need to learn more. We've got plenty of stories, some Derrick Jackson stories. So we see, that's the one thing. I don't get any of these DJ stories, so why don't you start digging some of these DJ stories?
You got to pry it out of him. You got to pry it out of him. Get it out of it, man. He has a bunch of them. Trust me.
We'll do that. No, I'll just say we'll have to do that, but we'll have to get Richard back on to do that. Man. I cannot thank you enough. I hope you happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, gentlemen, as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Richard Fain joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We got more coming up. The great Rick Bozich, Hall of Fame writer from WDRB.com, joins us next. We're back right after this.
We'll be right back.
Thanks a lot, brother. Thank you, bro.
More Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
If you're in the market for
Yeah, man.
Hey, Rick. How are you, buddy?
What's up, Rick? How you doing, brother?
I'm good. How are you, Derrick? Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Good. Happy Thanksgiving to you too, Rick.
To you,
Hey,
your
Rick,
wife, your dog.
while we're in break, are you able to stick around for 2 segments with us today?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'd be till 10:30. Normally 10:30 is when we would end now, but we actually got a late start today, so we're going 10:50. But appreciate you being able to switch times with us and dealing with our
Man, I don't even know what time our segments are today.
That's why you got me. I keep
Hey, man, it was great being around. I'm gonna jump off myself, guys. I got a couple things I need to do up in the Indianapolis area. And listen, next week, yes, I'll have a special guest next week, and it may be John, maybe even AT. I'm gonna let you know, okay? Because I'm gonna try to get that going as well, man.
Okay, let us know.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Hey,
Derrick. Thank you, brother.
Okay,
Appreciate you.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Thanks a lot. Hey, happy Thanksgiving you too, Rick.
All right, you too, Derrick.
All right.
Man, I am so ready to get done with today. Tomorrow, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to roll over and go back to sleep. It's exactly what I'm looking forward to doing for the next 4 days.
Until Saturday?
Well, Saturday's at least a later game, right? No, the
7.
daggone
Well, you got
bucket
Purdue
game.
and Marshall that day. It's a double duty that day.
Yeah, daggone bucket game's early, isn't it?
What time is the bucket game?
3:30.
Is that a
They'll run into
3:30
each other.
Yeah.
You're not going up there, are you?
No way. I wanted to go up just to say hey to the Brom boys, but I'll wait till Big Ten Media Days, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
man.
what kind of bowl game are they going to get?
You know, that's interesting.
They'll be 8-4, so probably like the.
Are they out of the
City Outback?
Are they out of the West?
Of the race?
Yeah.
I think they still have a chance to get a piece, but I don't know if they have a chance to get the first seed. A lot of things would have to happen.
I think Wisconsin has to go down.
Right.
Iowa has to lose. I think they both probably got to lose.
Has Purdue played in the Music City Bowl?
Yeah, they
They
played
haven't
Auburn
been in any
I think,
bowls
a few years
recently.
ago.
So.
I think they played Auburn down there a couple years ago.
And got smoked.
8 wins. That's Gator Bowl territory.
Yep. 15 seconds, by the way. We'll go ahead and bring us back.
298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Thanksgiving Eve. The great Rick Bozich joins us now. Rick, how are you, sir?
Good, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. You were traveling. Were you at a different game last night? Was there another game going on?
No, I was home last night. Last game I went to Louisville, Detroit on Saturday and checked out Mike Davis and his son Antoine, who put on a show, hit 6 threes and scored 27 points. And Detroit was tied with Louisville with a minute and a half to go.
Wow. Is that more on Louisville or Detroit?
Louisville hadn't played great to start the year, to be honest with you. I mean, they've already lost one game to Furman, and Detroit took them to the wire. Detroit's winless unless they played last night. I didn't check their stats from last night, but he's got a couple decent players. I mean, Antoine Davis is a really good scorer, and he's got a kid by the name of DJ Harvey, who I think might have been McDonald's All-American, who started at Notre Dame, and then he transferred somewhere else, and now he's at Detroit. So, you know, Mike's done the same thing ever since he's been at Texas Southern. He's starting the season with 9 games away from home, so he's getting all these guaranteed game money to run his whole program. And then he gets in the Horizon League, and he knows that it's all about having your team healthy and ready to go for the conference tournament, because it doesn't matter how great of a year you have. If you don't win the conference tournament, you don't go to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, but I wonder what's going to happen when his son leaves. He's been
it's a great question.
Knocking those threes down for a couple of years now.
Yeah, he's got the greenest of green lights in college basketball.
Is he good enough to go to the next level? I haven't seen him play.
I don't think so, because I don't think he's big enough. He's undersized and kind of slender, and guys with his body frame have elite quickness. And he's quick, but he's just not. He's not Isaiah Thomas quick. He's not John Wall quick. So I would be surprised if he's an NBA player.
Let's see. Dickie B returned to the airwaves last night for a game that we thought was going to be a great game, and it ended up not being so much. But the return of Dickie B was he got emotional to start that off.
Yeah, he did. He started crying there in the beginning with Dave O'Brien because of everything he's been through, and he mentioned that he didn't think he'd be able to call any games this year after his second cancer diagnosis, but things seem to be going well, and I was going to watch the whole thing, but I turned that off at halftime. It was a 20-point game. Was obviously UCLA wasn't going to be able to come back, and I'm going to have to give Gonzaga more props than I thought. They're good. I mean, they've been good the last few years, but this might be a different level of being good because the freshman center Holmgren gives him a different look. Man, he's a shot blocker.
Yeah, and I saw that. I'm like, man, maybe they have the pieces this year. And if anyone says, because they play a weak schedule, but they're going to look back at this UCLA game as a benchmark to say that, they beat the tar out of a UCLA team that's
right
supposedly be pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, Final Four from last year and started off with a win against Villanova. Gonzaga plays Duke Friday, so that's one more test for them. They might even have, I'm sure they probably have one or two other decent games in December. Their schedule doesn't, obviously, like everybody else, turn into conference play only until January. But, even their leagues had some pretty good wins this year. I saw some people talking about it last night on Twitter. St. Mary's has got some good wins. So they're going to be a number one seed. They're going to be the favorite to win the tournament unless they have an injury. And their star player, Drew Timme, is going to be the front runner for player of the year. So Mark Few is the center of college basketball has twisted towards that part of the country.
Which is odd that number one and number two were playing from the West Coast last night. But
first time ever.
Wow.
First time ever 1 and 2 played when they were both from the West Coast. That's what they said on the broadcast.
And obviously Gonzaga Duke, that coming up, that's an effort because Gonzaga knows their schedule, their conference. Mostly when people get to conference play, their schedule ramps up. It's kind of the opposite for Gonzaga. They get to conference play and it eases up. Minus St. Mary's is one of those teams, I think, that it's in their conference that kind of they've got a decent team this year as well.
Right. St. Mary's, maybe San Francisco. Other than that, I wouldn't want to have to take a quiz on who else is in their league because I probably wouldn't do too well.
The college football playoffs, the latest poll came out and Cincinnati made the top 4. Do they stay in the top 4? That's going to be, I guess, dependent upon, well, I don't know. I don't know who can knock them out really. Oklahoma State from the big, I just don't know who, now that they're in the top 4, as I'm looking down, you got Michigan behind them. They'd have to beat Ohio State to get up there, and so that would not necessarily knock Cincinnati out. I don't know that there's anyone that can knock Cincinnati out other than Cincinnati now that they're in the top 4.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if they lose, obviously they're out. It'd just be a question of whether if they have a close game, whether that would knock them out. I think it's probably the best course of action for Cincinnati is to make sure they win everything the rest of the way by at least 2 touchdowns. So people can't say, oh, they only beat this team by this much. But, if it would come down to Notre Dame, they get it over Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. I don't see how either. I guess if Michigan beats Ohio State could a 2-loss Ohio State get it over Cincinnati? Probably not.
I don't think so. I don't think so just because they've taken so much grief over not getting them, and now they're going to be, geez, what else can we do? We beat Notre Dame and Notre Dame.
Right.
But on the other hand, I've seen this Cincinnati team play. if this is one of the top 4 teams in the country, then college football is down. They just didn't seem to be that good to me, but we don't have as many dominant teams. Georgia's dominant, but Ohio State has become dominant. I haven't seen Alabama play as much this year, obviously, but
Right.
I think Notre Dame's kind of overranked. Michigan, we'll find out this weekend what they look like.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's curious about it too is if everybody holds their position the way it is right now, it would be what, Georgia against Cincinnati in the playoff, and Georgia and Cincinnati played last year in the Sugar Bowl, and that's a game that gave Cincinnati a lot of its credibility because they led Georgia into the fourth quarter. And then the other game would be what, Alabama and Ohio State. So, you know, if you're Georgia and Ohio State, you'd rather play Cincinnati, I think, than Alabama. So you want to hold on to that one spot.
Yeah, Ohio State though. If Cincinnati played Ohio State, I think that Ohio State would absolutely crush them with their passing game.
After what they did to Michigan State, although Cincinnati's pass defense is better, they've got that cornerback. What's his name, Gardner, who is a first-round draft pick. But I don't think Cincinnati they don't have the athletes and the team speed. Ohio State's, they're freakish. I mean, Ohio State, Georgia is the game I think people want to see. Ohio State's freakishly good on offense. Georgia's freakishly good on defense, and those are the 2 best teams in the country. No apologies to Nick Saban. He's capable of coming up with something, but Alabama's going to have to. They got to play Georgia in the SEC championship game. So, you know, I think Georgia could survive a loss to Alabama and still go to the playoff. I'm not sure. If Alabama loses, that would be 2 losses, right? They lost to A&M. And Alabama's no cinch. They got a rivalry game this weekend. I think it's at Auburn. They could lose. I don't think they will, but they could lose. So the team that I think, the only team that really can move up, maybe it would be Oklahoma State.
See, now that's a team that intrigues me and that I watched recently. I'm like, wow, they look pretty good, but pretty good is I don't know how good they would be against Cincinnati, but offensively, I think that's another team that would put Cincinnati in peril. On the other side of the ball, I think Cincinnati may be able to be equal to Oklahoma State. I don't know, but it's that's the thing about it comes down to so much subjectivity with picking those 4 teams. I can't wait till they expand that.
And here's the crazy thing: we were there on the 3rd weekend in September when Indiana could have easily beaten Cincinnati.
Yes.
And now they're going to finish 2-10. I just have to say this is the most inexplicable, and then they've had a bunch of them, the most inexplicable Indiana football season I can ever remember.
Is there anything that you can even come close to grabbing to get an understand what happened? Because I mean, I look at it, I'm like, offensive line, I don't have a clue what happened because you've got the same players. I'm like, so I don't know. And they weren't injured. And I know that, they did have a lot of injuries, but it just seemed like they were not ready from the get-go. I think that I've said this over and over, they made too many decisions based on this is what I think it's going to be as far as who the quarterback was going to be. And that decision was made because Grant Gremmel has looked as good as any quarterback that they put out there this season.
Yeah, he has.
And so I think that could have happened in other positions. I don't know, but that's a horrific fall. That's not just a disappointing. That's a fall from grace.
Yeah, I mean, what it is, I mean, they had actually made progress and made a dent in creating more fans, creating enthusiasm, earning credibility around the Big Ten and in some parts of the country of saying Indiana's taken a step forward in football and gotten people to buy in on it. And it's all gone now. It's all squandered. It's back to, Indiana football being Indiana football. And what's happened, I'm waiting for somebody to really do an exhaustive sort of story about it. It's never just one thing. Usually it's a bunch of things. If you ask me, my opinion would be number one would be no quarterback play, not from the get-go. The very first game, the very first series against Iowa, no quarterback play, and it never got any better. I think the schedule was hard, and once they lost, I think their confidence cratered and they got discouraged, and Cincinnati loss was a big setback, and then Michigan State was a bigger setback, and at that point, it almost looks like they've lost hope, and their offensive scheme not good at all.
Kind of reminded you of the Ole Miss game the last
right.
bowl game.
And the defense, I think, they're probably where the discouragement set in the most, along with injuries. They did have injuries, and say, no matter how great we play, we're still losing. Human nature to get discouraged, but it's the bigger question is like, where do they go from here? How do they start? They play Saturday against Purdue. I don't think anybody expects there's going to be an upset of any kind, right? Okay, that's rock bottom. How do you start to navigate your way forward? What do you do with your staff? How do you fix your roster? Because I noticed, was it yesterday, 2 more guys went in the portal? I mean, that's bottom. Yep. That's what's alarming, is that they've had a lot of guys go in the portal during the season. I mean, they've quit on the team in the middle of the season. The running back room's emptied out, right? I mean, it's they got to rebuild their roster, and that can be done. I mean, but it's hard.
Yeah, and they're going to have to, because they don't have a choice. Like you said, they just lost Bonham and Pearson. CJ Pearson.
Those guys played quite a bit last year, right?
Those are names that have been around. So
it makes you wonder, like, they didn't play this year because they brought some transfers in and then they got disgruntled? I mean, get that thought.
Jacoby Hewitt, another receiver name. Those 3 names that are important to this program. And so, and you said Tom Allen built this on what he had done, and rightfully so. But man, that's a hard job to go back to, because he had done what most may not have been able to do. Plenty of other games coming up this weekend: the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Of course, you've got Ohio State at Michigan. Does Jim Harbaugh get his first win over Ohio State? We'll talk about that when we come back. Both teams at 10-1. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration,
Ohio State is only an 8-point favorite. I bet they win by 3 touchdowns.
I would think so. What's Indiana? 15-point underdog?
Yeah, 15.
That's all.
Surprised Louisville's favored by 3 over Kentucky.
That kind of threw me for a loop when I first saw that.
Well, Louisville's been playing well. Well, I guess that's a lot
true.
On Malik Cunningham's big weekend.
But they played Syracuse and Duke too. So,
and I guess Kentucky really hasn't. Don't they have a pretty hapless defense right now? Don't they?
Defense has struggled some, and they make a lot of turnovers. Their
quarterback, it's a recipe for an upset, that's for sure. Where you got some
quarterbacks usually good for 1 interception a game, and Chris Rodriguez, their top running backs, he fumbles pretty much. I think he's got 5 or 6 fumbles.
Could set up for a turning of the tables down in Kentucky once again.
Yep.
I say down in Kentucky as if I'm not in Kentucky myself. Whenever I'm doing this Indiana show, I'm in the Indiana mindset.
Now, where are you living in Kentucky?
Yeah, I live in Mount Washington and I actually work at the iHeart stations.
Oh, they're in Louisville?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
You've just got brought on full time. I've been filling in for Terry a lot. Not for Terry, but for Ian on Terry's show.
Okay. Tell Terry I said hi.
Will do.
Where do you have to go anywhere this weekend?
I'm going to Louisville, Kentucky game.
Where is that being played?
It's here at Louisville, 7:30 Saturday night. Be nice and cold. Be interesting to see what kind of crowd they get.
In the pink seats of Cardinal Stadium.
Yeah. And you said Indiana's at 3:30?
Yep.
Yeah, and then they
The
play
basketball games at
basketball
7 o'clock?
Yeah,
Did you go to the basketball game last night?
I did. They were
Did a
pretty
post-game show
dominant.
till about 11 o'clock too.
It seemed like this was the first game where they knew they were like much better than that team, and they played good, but it wasn't really like there was no atmosphere. I'll tell you that much.
No, there wasn't. Like you just watch Trace Jackson Davis; he can almost walk through and get 11 points and 5 rebounds.
Right.
I mean, he could stumble down the floor, and that's what he's going to end up with.
All right, here we go.
AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Thanksgiving Eve here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and we're fortunate to be joined by Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you go listen or read all of his stuff because it is my favorite, to be honest with you. I've been reading him since, well, I better not say and make you feel.
You better not say.
Oh, man. But basketball weekend, too. This is thought of as a big football weekend, and it is. A lot of rivalry games this weekend. Michigan, Ohio State, probably as big as they get because Jim Harbaugh has, man, was he 0-7?
I believe that's right. Yeah.
Man, that's almost hard to believe, but not because Ohio State has just been that juggernaut during that period. But man, that's for two teams that were both at that same level. That's got that. I know how hard that is for the Michigan fans to take.
Yeah, and I mean Ohio State has separated itself from the rest of the Big Ten in terms of the way they recruit. If you just watch them play compared to other Big Ten teams, it's different because they have an elite passing game. They throw the ball better than anybody in the league, and they have speed that nobody else in the league can match. And so it's almost like they're playing a different game than the rest of the Big Ten, different than Penn State, different than Michigan, different than Wisconsin or Iowa. It's like a pro team.
Yeah, you said the recruiting, they just keep replacing those players. CJ Stroud just
better than Justin Fields.
Exactly what I was getting ready to say. It's like you watch Justin Fields on Sunday, and it's like, well, there's his replacement playing on Saturday, and it's just like one after the other.
And they got the dude sitting out who got in the game, I guess, on Saturday, the best high school senior in the country who skipped his senior year in high school because he got the NIL deal, and he's warming up. He's getting experience, ready to come in. So he might even be better. Next year they'll have Tom Brady at quarterback or something. It's nuts.
Funny.
It's different than Alabama. I mean, Alabama's been really good and won more national championships, obviously, but they've done it with defense. Ohio State seems to be more offensive oriented. But I got to give Ryan Day credit because following a legend like Urban Meyer isn't easy. He's done it and done it well. And this year, after they lost to Oregon and their defense didn't perform, he was decisive and he changed defensive coordinators immediately. And I think there's, I can't say I'm really in favor of it, but if you look at the teams that are really into football, they don't mess around. When somebody's not doing their job, they're gone. They don't wait. They don't, form a committee and study it. They're decisive and they fix the problem.
Exactly. And we've seen a lot of that, in football. Part of that's been mandated because the early signing period was moved up to December 15th, which is now just less than a month away. Mm-hmm. So you look at a school like Indiana, perhaps that is more than likely going to have some coaching personnel changes after this weekend. I say more than likely, you would think, but now you've got this little bitty window that they have to do that, get someone hired and navigate the recruiting. That's a lot to get done, and it continues to possibly put you a couple of steps behind the other schools.
Yeah, I mean, and the candidates who you would want are probably going to have other opportunities. So you have to be able to recruit them to come to your place and say, this is the best spot for you. And some of these guys, and they did it. I mean, give Tom Allen credit. He did it with Kalen DeBoer. But the problem is he got him there and he was successful, and then he leaves after 1 year, just like Kane Womack was there for 2 years, and he was successful and he leaves. So that's the part of it that Indiana still is working on, of when they get the right pieces in place, finding the right pieces, but then getting them to stay. And that's going to be hard to do. And give Jeff Brown credit for it too. Let's remember this. Purdue was bad on defense last year, and he was decisive. He fired Bob Diaco after one season and brought in a guy who I think was one of the top defensive coordinators at the FCS level, and their defense has gotten better. And so that's what you have to do. You got to be decisive, and you can't let problems linger.
Absolutely not. Josh Hoover comes in for Indiana and at the break here. So he'll be here in January. And speaking of coaching, that's an important thing for him. He's recruited by Nick Sheridan. So just throwing that out there, not that he's not coming, but a change like that affects the mindset and all of that. So to do it sooner. Yeah, I was never a proponent of it before either, but I kind of understand, especially like if you're at a point to where season's lost, like Nebraska really went whole hog and just got rid of the entire offense.
Four coaches, wasn't it?
Yeah, and didn't they do it before were they mathematically eliminated for bowl contention yet?
Yeah, that's what I think it was when the bowl possibility went out the window.
So then that's a little more understandable. And Nebraska is one of those teams that that's their sport, man. Mm-hmm. That's what they hang their helmet on, not hat on. But so we'll see. You mentioned Tom Brady. Last opportunity possibly for local fans to see him play on Sunday as he visits Indianapolis to take on the Colts, the GOAT in Indianapolis.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, that was the scene of wasn't that one of his worst losses? Didn't he lose to the Giants in the Super Bowl in Indianapolis? I think he did.
Oh, is that is that where they are undefeated?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Giselle stormed out, remember, after it was over, and I think blamed the receivers or the offensive coordinator or somebody. I vaguely remember that. But hey, hat tip to the Colts, man. That win they had last weekend might have been the most impressive win any NFL team has had this year. They were at Buffalo, right? And not only beat the Bills, they dominated them. So the Colts are an interesting group.
Of course, college basketball off and running, as we talked about. Indiana last night with another win, 70-35. Very pedestrian-like for Indiana as they went through it easily. But the one thing that is steadfast is they, up until the end, they let a 9-0 run happen. So some threes went up. But before then, they were holding yet another opponent to under 20% shooting from the field. If those three shots don't go down, that would have been a second consecutive. And I know that they're not playing Gonzaga here, but I don't recall back-to-back games of holding opponents to under 20% shooting.
No, I don't recall that at all. That's been the biggest improvement of this team. As much as Archie was known as a defensive guy and a pack line guy, it never did really work consistently. And for them to, what was it? Lafayette missed 25 straight shots or something? It was over 20.
Yes.
And then, last night again, they keep Jackson State from scoring. So I think they're up to 8th or 9th in Ken Pom in defensive efficiency. I thought somebody told me they're first in the country in defensive field goal shooting after last night. So yeah, their defense is legit. Does it mean they're going to, play like this the rest of the season? No, because they're going to play better competition and teams are going to get hot and hit shots. But I think they are playing good enough defense that, as Woodson has talked about, it'll be the kind of defense that will keep them in most games. And looking around the Big Ten, and I've watched nearly every team, I think Purdue's clearly the best team in the Big Ten.
Oh, yeah.
But Michigan looks like they're overrated. They not only lost to Seton Hall at home, they got run out of the gym by Arizona. Illinois lost twice and struggled with Kansas State last night. They're a little bit overrated. Ohio State's struggled a few times. I mean, I don't, other than Purdue, I don't see there's any team in the Big Ten that Indiana should be like fearful of. I mean, I don't see one.
Speaking of Purdue on a national scale, how good are they? I mean, they look like they are. You've got Gonzaga, and Purdue,
Kansas.
Purdue may. It's hard to imagine they may be up there with the Gonzaga because
you're talking to the only AP voter in the country who voted Purdue #1 this week. So wow. I watched them when they beat Villanova, and that was impressive. And I watched them when they dominated North Carolina. In the game before that, I think they played Wright State. I know Wright State's not great, but they're usually one of the better teams in the Horizon League, and they beat them by like 40. I mean, what I like about Purdue is they've got every element of the game. They got big men, Edey and Williams, and Edey is, he's unique and he's so large. Williams is more of a traditional power big man, and he's experienced and tough. First is good, and he not only can run the floor and mix it up, he can make threes. Stefanovic, last time I looked, had 18 threes in 5 games. He's one of the better shooters in the country. And Jaden Ivey's the lottery pick. I mean, so they've got it all. Plus they have some other guys, Gillis and Newman. And I mean, they got depth. They're good. They're Final Four good. They could win the national championship.
And Edey, and it's not that his talent is so good, but like you said, he's unique because you take all that talent you just talked about and you put this basically Andre the Giant piece in the middle that is an immovable object. And he's hard to shoot around. He changes the game. And that's all he has to do is alter the game, alter shots. It's all and that's a big piece for them. Something that they've never had all of this together, at least not under the Matt Painter era, I think, at this level.
And the thing about Edey is, I mean, he's getting better. I mean, he's
improved.
He's got a lot of room to grow. He's becoming more confident offensively. He's getting stronger so he can hold his position defensively. I think that's one thing that Mike Woodson and Indiana are working on is they need to get Michael Durr up to speed because when they play Purdue, Michael Durr's going to have to go in there and deal with Edey some. Edey's too big for Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson. Michael Durr's going to have to play 10 to 15 minutes that game against Edey, in my opinion.
Is Durr strong enough? I don't know if he's strong.
I don't know if he is. I don't know if he's mobile enough. I mean, he's from what I've seen, he's decently mobile, but he's not at Edey's level.
Yeah, he's going to be a tough to deal with if Indiana looks to snap that 0-for-9 streak against Purdue. But Indiana's basketball team is definitely on the rise, looking better.
They're better.
They've got a Marshall game coming up Saturday, then a test coming up on Tuesday as they travel to Syracuse in the Carrier Dome to take on a Syracuse team that hasn't looked quite as good of late. They gave up 100 to Colgate at home.
Yeah. And they lost to Colgate 100-85, which is weird. So that already eliminates the excuse that people can't attack Syracuse's zone. Yes, they can. Colgate did it. It's the Boeheim show. Jim Boeheim's son's buddy, and I think is Jimmy. I think the other one's name is Jimmy. And they got another guard. What's it, Joe Girard or something like that? A little point guard. I mean, they're going to shoot a lot of threes. They're going to try and play fairly fast and line up in that. The thing about Syracuse is they frequently start slow and get better as the year goes on. And that'll be a tough game for Indiana. First road game. Carrier Dome's a different kind of place to play. We'll see what they got. They can win the game. I'll be very curious to see how they play in that game.
Indiana's shooting is a positive of late. They've been shooting the ball a lot better. Miller Kopp, I've seen Miller Kopp try to find his game, his role in the rhythm in the offense of late. We've seen Parker Stewart do that in the last few games, even Christian Lander the game before last. But guys all seem to be trying to find their role now in the offense, with Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart being the last two starters that really found that. And Parker Stewart, once he has stepped out from behind the 3-point line and not just hitting those, last night he was trying to get to the rim. I don't think I've seen him try that one time prior to last night's game.
Yeah, I can't think of. I don't have the stats in front of me. I can't imagine he shot many free throws this year. He's a really good catch and shoot guy, and Mike Woodson, being a former pro coach, I'm sure knows and is working on developing more offensive sets to get him open threes, because that's his game. He's not a shoot off the dribble guy. He's not a drive guy. He's a catch and shoot, make three guys. When he gets his feet set, he's a really good 3-point shooter. Kopp has done some things. He has a quick trigger sometimes. He's taken a few shots like early. It's like, whoa,
that one last night, buddy.
Shot, man, huh? He did that a couple times. He does it once or twice every game. He'll be coming down and take one like 2 or 3 feet behind the line. It's like,
2 seconds into the shot clock.
Yeah, it's like that might work against Jackson State, but don't be doing that in a 3-point game against Maryland.
No,
you know what I mean? The one thing that's been, I don't know what the right word. They've had an opportunity to get more minutes for Lander and Geronimo and Durr and even Leal, because of the 3 guys who've been out. Finney with the calf injury and Galloway with the broken hand or wrist, whatever it is, and Duncan with the suspension has shortened the rotation. And because they've won pretty easily, they've had a chance to get these other guys some minutes. And I think that's something was really lacking last year. Lander never got any chance to play in November.
But if he did, he was out in 2 minutes.
Yeah. And neither did, Geronimo didn't get a lot of time to play. And those guys have got a chance to come in, make mistakes, get some things on film that, Lander made a mistake in the first half last night and Woodson jerked him immediately. It was a turnover. It was either a turnover or a defensive breakdown. And I noticed that Woodson pulled him and he kept him standing there right next to him on the bench, and the game was going on, and Woodson and Lander were talking as the game was going on, and he had his grease board out and he was showing him what he did wrong. And I don't think he put him in again the rest of the first half. And it was like, this, you can't do this. You're not going to be able to do this against good teams, because it can cost a team a game. And that's been the one thing they cleaned it up last night in the second half, but they've been a little sloppy with the basketball. I mean, obviously 27 turnovers against Lafayette is ridiculous. Then last night, I think they had 8 in the first half and 3 in the second. So it was better, but you can't, some of the turnovers they've had have been, silly turnovers.
Yeah. And a couple of times he's pointed to Jordan Geronimo for being sloppy with the ball, for doing some things. And and at least he calls him out, says, hey, we've got to work with him on that. And that's good but he also knows that Jordan Geronimo's a raw talent, an OG Anunoby type. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I know that Tim on the comments pointed out yesterday, I think that when Lander came out, that Woody had him over there talking to him. But the point of not putting him back in, that's a little bit more emphasis. So, hey, right, man, you want to play? You can't do this. Where's Rick Bozich going to be? You're going to be at the Louisville game. Is that the only thing you have to do this weekend? Not the.
Tomorrow Louisville actually plays tomorrow night in basketball, but it's in the Bahamas, and I didn't draw the straw. We're not going. I don't think the Courier Journal's not even going. So I'll watch that tomorrow night on TV, and then Saturday is the Governor's Cup. Kentucky's routed Louisville the last 2 times they played them. I talked to you a little bit about this off camera. I mean, Kentucky's 8-3, the second best team in the SEC East behind only Georgia. Louisville is 6-5, in 4th place in the ACC Atlantic, and Louisville's favored by 3, which is interesting to me. That it's mainly because, as you mentioned,
who's playing better right now?
Probably Louisville. Malik Cunningham has 9 touchdown passes and no interceptions in his last 2 games, but it's been against Syracuse and Duke. And, Kentucky got off to that 6-0 start, and then they lost to Georgia. Then they went down to Mississippi State and got routed. And then they came home and lost to Tennessee in an upset in a game they shouldn't have lost. Their defense melted down, and they bounced back by beating Vandy and I think New Mexico State, 2 really bad teams. But Kentucky's not playing as well as it was early in the year, and Louisville's playing better. So it's a big game for Louisville. I think it's a big game for Satterfield. This is his third year. He didn't play Kentucky last year because of the virus, and he lost to him the first year. So if he needs to get more fans back on his side, the best way to do it is by beating Kentucky.
Well, it is rivalry weekend, man. Indiana, Purdue, Louisville, Kentucky, Ohio State, Michigan, they're all down the line. The Iron Bowl, you got them all to look forward to. Make sure you follow Rick Bozich at WDRB.com for complete coverage of all of that and more. Rick, I can't thank you enough, man. Wish you and your family and your dog a happy Thanksgiving. I'm sure he's probably just licking his lips right now, man, knowing what's coming.
Every day's Thanksgiving for Ruby. So yeah.
Ruby, I gotta remember that. Well, happy Thanksgiving to Ruby as well. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, Rick. Have a great one.
Talk to you next week.
You bet. The great Rick Bozich joins us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And that's going to pretty much wrap it up. John, are we
we have another segment, but
okay. Well, I wanted to make sure, but hit the break. We've got plenty more coming up. We'll get to that when we're back right after this from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Arroyo Specialty Sleep Clinic.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration.
Yeah, this would normally be when we end, but because of the late start, we got one more to do.
Man.
And you still got those presser clips. I don't think you've only used one. The one
we're going to use them. We're going to use them. I wish I'd have used them then, but we'll use them now, and then we're going to do some picks.
Some basketball picks or football picks?
We'll just start with football because of all the rivalry games.
I pull my schedules up so I can see what we're going to be picking. Big Ten games only, or anything?
No, we can start there, but
okay. I made picks for the football games with Dustin. I didn't remember who I picked.
All right, so K is +3 at U of L. IU is what?
They're a 15-point dog to Purdue.
Minus
unless it's
15.
changed. Yeah, it's still 15.
Yeah.
Over under is 50.5.
OSU is +8 at Michigan. I am going to bet all over that thing.
I think it started at 7, so it's already gone up a point. If only we had the Greek on for these.
Yeah, Iowa, Nebraska. Iowa is a 1.5 favorite.
It's funny, Nebraska was actually favored before Adrian Martinez got hurt.
Iowa's 9-2. Nebraska's 3-8.
Okay, so check this out, and this is something I guess we can mention on the air too. But Nebraska, if they lose by one possession, they're going to break a record for most one possession losses in a single season, which I think is 8. They currently have 7. I could be wrong, but it's something like that.
That's crazy. That one right there is the craziest stat of the day. Number 16, 9-2 Iowa is a 1.5 favorite at 3-8 Nebraska.
All right, 10 seconds.
Or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Thanksgiving Eve on this Wednesday. I hope you're having a wonderful day. and getting ready for a little holiday cheer. I know I'm ready for a little holiday rest. I can tell you that. Looking over some of these football games, college football games. I wish we had Jeffrey the Greek joining us today. Oh, wow. Here's an ugly one. Northwestern at Illinois. I'm just kind of laughing at some of these. Northwestern at Illinois. Illinois is a 6.5 point favorite there. Illinois, I mean, they've been, fighting. But if we want to stick just in the Big Ten right now, let's do that. Here's the game that blows my mind from a betting perspective. Number 16, Iowa. 9-2, number 16, Iowa, is at 3-8, Nebraska. And 9-2, number 16, Iowa, is only a 1.5 favorite.
Well, here's the thing, Jim. I mentioned this during the break. Nebraska is on the verge of breaking a ridiculous record. If they are able to lose this game by one possession, they are going to break the record for most one-possession losses in a single season, which I believe is around 7 or 8. So, I mean, it's the classic saying, you're the best 3-9 team in the country. Well, that's exactly what Nebraska probably is going to be this year. The best 3-9 team in history, maybe. Just crazy to say.
Yeah. Maybe. Should have won.
And
more.
plus Nebraska, I didn't mention this. Nebraska was favored before Adrian Martinez as their quarterback was ruled out.
Now, I wish to gosh that would have been. I wish that would have been funny. That would have been the craziest thing ever. But there you go. That's a wild one. All right, so now move over for who's going bowling. The who's going bowling game. 5-6 Maryland is a 1.5 point favorite at 5-6 Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody is going bowling that has not been for a while.
Rutgers hasn't been since their first year in the Big Ten, 2014. I don't know the last time Maryland went bowling, but it's also been a while.
I mean, is there any question this is the biggest home game in Rutgers since they played Louisville in 2008 and knocked them out of the Orange Bowl?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember that game too. They had those family
offsides. They had a bad. There was a bad fair catch call, and there was an offsides. There was a missed field goal by Rutgers. Louisville jumps off sides. They get to kick the field goal again. They make the field goal, lose the game, and it cost them the Orange Bowl. I remember that.
Were you covering Louisville back then?
I was just covering everything. Just living down that area. I just remember.
Yeah, I knew you were down here
specifically. Okay, now here's the Illinois Bowl. Northwestern, 3-8 Northwestern is at Illinois, 4-7. Illinois is a 6.5 point favorite. To me, Illinois has been playing a lot better. No one's scoring points, of course. And the over and under is 43.5 points in that game. Well, who the hell is going to score the points?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a very unexciting matchup. Dustin calls Illinois the Fighting Brett Bielema's, and in honor of that, I think Illinois will win just simply because they have the better wins already on the schedule.
Too, but I don't think anybody's going to score 40 points.
Yeah. Well, so when you see the over under of 43, I guess you're expecting it to be around 20-ish to 19, around those. That's a pretty low scoring game still.
A very interesting game. Penn State at 7-4, unranked Penn State at 7-4, travels to Sparty, number 12 Sparty, but Penn State is a 1 point underdog. And
I think this
I
goes
agree
to
with
what we've been talking about kind of the past several weeks, that Michigan State really isn't as good as their record says or their ranking. I did pick Penn State to win this one, and I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say that that's realistic. So I think the
agree
Nittany
with you.
Lions went on the road.
I agree with you. Michigan State is not – they're not the 12th best team in the country. Cincinnati is not the 4th best team in the country. I've seen them both play. They're just not. It is what it is. Wisconsin and Minnesota. Is that the Paul Bunyan Trophy?
Yeah, the Paul Bunyan's axe. The Paul Bunyan
Bunyan's
Trophy.
axe.
I got that confused on the podcast earlier this week too. Paul Bunyan's axe is this game. The Paul Bunyan Trophy is Michigan versus Michigan State.
Everybody
Why
got
do you
to share
need two
Paul
of them?
Bunyan? Yeah. Either way, Wisconsin is a 7-point favorite at Minnesota. And I would agree with that.
Yeah, Wisconsin can lock up the Big Ten West, it looks like. Well, I don't know. Because if Iowa wins, they'll also be 9-3 and 7-2 in the Big Ten. I don't know who's got the head-to-head between Wisconsin and Iowa.
Well, you just have to
But
look that up. I don't remember who won that game, but to look
The winner
that up.
of that will likely be facing either Michigan or Ohio State. I'm trying to see. Iowa has the win over Wisconsin has the win over Iowa. So all Wisconsin has to do is beat Minnesota, and they'll be heading to the Big Ten championship.
There you go. So that on that side, and of course, Ohio State has to win. So the Ohio State-Michigan game is for the Big Ten East title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both 10-1. Technically, Ohio State right now has the better record, but if Michigan beats Ohio State, they'll have the head-to-head, even though they'll be tied in the Big Ten standings. So winner of this will go on to the Big Ten championship as well.
Absolutely. I think that while Michigan is not a bad team, Ohio State is just a juggernaut, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Michigan is the 5th best team in the country, but this year I think that once you get below 3, as has been the case for a few years, but this year more so than I don't know. Man, there are some teams you can throw in there. Oklahoma State. It's a great mixture down there. But from the Big Ten, yeah, those are my picks right there. I definitely would take Ohio State, give up the 8 points. I wish it wasn't 8, but 8 points. And against Michigan, Penn State, -1 at Michigan State, and Wisconsin, I think they run over Minnesota pretty handily from that standpoint. But let's see. What are there just
Still got Indiana Purdue as well, if you want to.
Oh, I didn't talk about that one?
I mean, I know we've talked about it today, but we didn't make a prediction. I know it's not necessarily worth predicting, I guess, but we didn't go over it at all.
Nope, we did not. IU is a 15-point underdog at Purdue. First of all, if Grant Gremmel doesn't start, I don't know how Indiana scores more than
14, maybe at the most.
No, I'm thinking 10. Grant Gremmel has to start and play the bulk of this game. They have to throw the ball if they're going to have any chance of even competing in this game, because they are outmanned offensively. They don't have a David Bell. They don't have a quarterback that is experienced and established like Purdue does at the moment. So they're hurting. The defense has been hurting.
Yep.
How are you going to stop? You going to stop David Bell? 15 points, even though it's a rivalry game in Indiana, I don't know that it's enough. I just don't know where Indiana's going to manufacture the points offensively, and the defense has not turned the ball over, so they haven't been getting any points. I just don't.
It is a rivalry game. Anything can happen. Obviously, when you're playing as bad as Indiana's been playing, it's hard.
And they've got nothing else to play for.
Yeah,
there's nothing else to play for. Pride here.
I mean, and it's just a good way to go into the offseason when you've had such a horrible year. If you're able to get a win against a pretty good Purdue team, and I don't want to say ruin Purdue's season because they're still going to be 7-5 and in a good bowl game, but Purdue obviously doesn't want to lose to this bad Indiana team. So if you're able to take that kind of momentum into the offseason, especially in a year where a lot of people, fans included, think that Indiana doesn't have a chance in this game, I mean, there's real things on the line here other than just winning the game. So,
well, there's been upsets that happen all the time, but usually you have the weapons. And that's, I just don't know that Indiana has the weapons. We haven't seen them use anything close to do that for weeks.
Yep.
So
you're right. We had Mitchell Page on the podcast, and he said that there was years where he played and Purdue was god awful, like when Darrell Hazel was coach. But Purdue still gave Indiana a run for their money just because it's the bucket game. And so I'm not saying that Indiana's going to beat Purdue. I don't think they're going to, but I mean, it could definitely be a 1 or 2 possession game late if they're playing well, but who knows?
Fresno State, 7.5 point favorite. They're 8-3, Fresno State, 7.5 point favorite over San Jose State, who are 5-6. San Jose State looking to become bowl eligible. Fresno State, of course, Kalen DeBoer's team.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. You've got the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss traveling to Mississippi State. That's the game where the guy hiked up his leg a couple years ago and cost his team the win.
I love that clip. Love it.
Cost his team the win. Can you imagine that? Costing a rivalry game because of something stupid and moronic like that?
It's a great story to tell, that's for sure, if you're that guy. But I mean, at the same time, it's
not
horrible.
If you're that guy, it's not.
Oh, it's kind of funny though. In retrospect, I mean, you still did that. Like I
wouldn't tell that story.
I don't know.
No way.
I don't understand, I guess, the rivalry of Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I've heard it's probably the most intense rivalry in the SEC.
But it's just like, I wouldn't tell that for any rivalry game. If I cost my team a rivalry win because I was an idiot and got down on all fours and hiked up my leg like I was peeing and drew a foul and cost the game, no way am I telling that idiotic story.
Definitely get that perspective, but depending on his sense of humor and his outlook of it, it is a funny story to tell.
I'm looking down through here for some other big games. Of course, I guess I should jump over
to
Louisville,
SEC. Kentucky, or I should say
Well, we've
Louisville.
already talked about that.
Okay.
We've already are we ready to go?
No, we've got 4 minutes.
Oh, good. The SEC, that'll have some good games. I already talked about the Egg Bowl, Georgia Tech.
We have 5-6 Florida State, 5-6 Florida. Somebody gets the bowl eligibility there.
Talking about the Florida schools, one of them is going to become bowl eligible today at the expense of the other. Florida State on the road at Florida, who just fired their coach.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a Florida team who does not have a head coach. Man, Florida is a 2.5 point favorite there.
I don't like that. I think Florida State, with all of the turmoil going down in Gainesville right now, I think Florida State gets this one.
Well, Florida State cost me last week, so damn it. Alabama, the Iron Bowl, not what it once was, but Alabama's only a 19.5 point favorite over 6-5 Auburn.
Yeah, okay. I don't know.
See, we've seen
the Iron Bowl, but
we've seen Ohio State playing Big Ten teams this year, which they were 21 point favorites over a top 10 team. And yet here's Alabama against a 6-5 Auburn team, and it's only 19.5 points.
And it's by the sure fact
SEC
that it's
bias.
The Iron Bowl.
It's SEC
I don't know if
bias.
It's SEC bias. I think it's because it's Alabama, Auburn, and it's being played in Auburn. So, and plus Alabama, not that they're a bad team. They're a fantastic team, obviously, but Alabama is not typical Alabama where they're blowing everybody out of the water this year.
Yeah, they may be sharking it. They may be just hanging back, playing wolf, waiting for the college football playoffs. Seriously.
Yeah, it's true. You don't want guys getting hurt.
The Rocky Top game, Vanderbilt, 2-9 Vanderbilt traveling to Tennessee. Tennessee is a 31 point favorite in that game.
Vanderbilt, one of the only, or the other team alongside Indiana to not beat a Power 5 team this year, of other Power 5 teams, obviously. that would require them to beat Tennessee or Indiana to beat Purdue to get off of that pedestal. But I don't think it's happening. I mean, Tennessee may cover that 31 spread.
Here's another Texas A&M at 8-3, only a 6.5 point favorite at LSU, who's 5-6.
LSU, very similar situation with Florida. I mean, you're dealing with the end of Ed Orgeron. I mean, it's not as messy as the Dan Mullen situation down in Florida, but I would say Texas A&M, even though it is at LSU, I think I like them in this one too.
Clemson, South Carolina, yada yada. Hey man, I hope everyone goes out and has plenty of Turkey Day food. I'm hungry right now.
Oh, same here.
I'm sitting here thinking about it all. Save a plate for me. I can't thank everybody enough as always. All the comments today. Kenneth says he talked about tomorrow's vertical increase. Yep, tomorrow's an athlete, man. He's been getting better and better. Ross thinks the game will be a 31-10 Purdue win. So there's that. And we've got more basketball coming up on Saturday as Indiana back at it with We Are Marshall. Looking forward to that. I hope each and every one of you, if you're traveling, have safe travels. Go out and have yourselves a great time with the family and friends, whatever you're doing. John, I don't think you're going anywhere, are you?
We're going to my in-laws on Thanksgiving, and then Friday we're going to my family's.
But that's all local, right?
Yeah, we'll be in Kentucky.
We didn't have to say that, but just local. Happy Thanksgiving to all you guys. I appreciate you all so much. I really do. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. But John, are we at it?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Appreciate you all so much. Until Friday. I guess we'll be back Friday. No show on Thursday for Thanksgiving, of course, but I think we'll be back Friday. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.